Hello and welcome to the Sony Pro Show. My name's Harsha Patel and I am delighted to introduce you to the third in our series of Sony shows aimed at giving you detailed insights, tips, tricks and general professional workflow and kit run-throughs to our audience. Today we're coming to you from the beautiful YouTube studios in central London. From the emerging self-shooting director to the long-standing professional cameraman, this show has something for you. This series promises a lot, so in order to keep up with our episodes, then please do subscribe to the My Sony Professional YouTube channel. Right, let's go meet the guys. Great to see you guys. Thanks very much for coming down to the YouTube studios. Now, you've all come off the back of some pretty amazing adventures, but before we get into that, can you just introduce yourselves?
I'm Rob Taylor, I'm a camera person, director of photography. I'm sort of known now for kind of wild shoots, remote places and natural history and that kind of thing, adventures.
Hanging out with Bear Grylls, I believe.
Yeah, sometimes, yeah, hanging out of helicopters with Bear Grylls sometimes, last week.
Just last week?
Yeah.
How is he?
He's all right.
I'm Johno Verity. I suppose I specialise in what I've come from, my background, which is snow sports. I also film a lot in studio. I really like filming fiction and comedy, which is completely different to that. I feel like it's a completely different job, I suppose.
Joe Allam, what I describe as an independent creative. First and foremost, YouTube is the main audience for me. And it's all about travel photography and creating visual content.
So how did you guys all get into filmmaking?
I started out pretty young, basically started at the bottom, being a runner and work experience and then camera assisting from when I was about 16.
You now specialise in outdoor filming.
When I was kind of younger, I was really into like whitewater kayaking and mountain biking and things like that, and so I was kind of outdoorsy.
Yeah.
And for a long time I was into that kind of thing and my filming was not in that kind of ballpark.
Right,
and then
okay.
Recently I've kind of managed to amalgamate the two and kind of turn my childhood into my job, which is quite
Well, that sounds
good.
like the dream. You've just got off the back of filming in the Bahamas with sharks.
Yeah.
What was that experience like?
You can essentially just get in the water and it's basically full of sharks.
Are you not in a cage or
No,
anything?
just kind of cruising around on scuba. And the nurse sharks there were, it was my fault. I was in their domain and I kind of just let my hand kind of float around and one of them had a little quick taste of my fingers.
Well, on that bitey note, can I just point out, that looks pretty bitey to me.
Yeah, he got a little bit bitey.
Nibbly on the fin.
The girl who was taking the picture was like, "Oh, I got the shark biting your fin," and I was like, "Oh,
What?
a shark bit my fin." And so.
Did you have
Yeah.
bite marks in it?
No, I was really disappointed, but I looked for them
Oh.
afterwards and I didn't.
What about you, Jono? How did you get into filming?
I was always really interested in cameras, but at age 19 I got really into snowboarding. That became a career for me, and then I rediscovered cameras, and snowboarding and filming kind of goes hand in hand. It's very photogenic.
You're not just a snowboarding cameraman.
I do studio shoots with all sorts of different people, such as shooting Ronaldo. We shot an underwear shoot with him. That's really interesting for a completely different reason, because everything has to be exactly right, and then he's going to turn around and go get changed. He won't come back and do it again, so you've got to get it right. And that's just interesting for a completely different reason.
And Joe, what about you?
So I've always had, again, passion for cameras from a young age. Got heavily involved in photography, and it was just like a natural progression into video when DSLR started doing video.
There is a difference between the kind of brief that these guys would get as cameramen to what you'd get, and what do you think generally that is?
I mean, a huge aspect to the content that I'm creating is it's still very much centered around the personality of myself in front of camera. It just so happens that I'm passionate about the technical side and the actual camera operation. YouTube is still very much driven by people, so it's personalities that people subscribe to.
Yeah.
That's what they're interested in seeing.
And audiences love it, they want it, as per your view account, which is a lot more than mine. I've got a YouTube channel, by the way. This many subscribers compared to yours. Are there any moments where it's all kind of gone wrong when you've been in a filming situation?
I was filming a programme about avalanches and got caught in a huge avalanche. I got fully buried, but then ended up I got spat out again at the bottom. But yeah, no, I thought I was going to die. It's the best thing I've ever done. As in, for my career, that show was made then. The producer was like, oh my God, this is the best thing that could have ever happened.
Near death.
I live a pretty timid lifestyle compared to that.
You said that you missed a train once, or was that just a story?
Yeah, you know, you miss a train, you have to wait for the next one. For Japan, it's like 2 minutes, so.
So we've got the introductions out of the way. Let's try and get some tips from these guys about filming on the go. First up, what are your essential items for filming on the go?
I really like Selvit lens cloths, which are like old school kind of lens cloths made out of cotton, and like I think they're better than microfiber, especially when you're wet in seawater and the microfiber just smears. And I like tennis racket grip on the top of my camera, so like if you're hanging off a boat or out of a helicopter, you've got a good grip on your camera.
Guess I'd just say more batteries than you think you'll need and a decent way of recording audio.
I have like a couple of little things. I always have a Sharpie in my bag with gaffer tape just wrapped around it. So it makes it like that much fatter, but it just kind of ties the two together. You never know when you need to write on something, use little bits of tape.
How do you guys prepare for a big shoot?
I write lists that run into the hundreds and thousands, particularly going somewhere remote. Like I try to have redundancy for like every item. You know, you have the main camera. If that breaks, you need a camera that can step in to be good enough to be the main camera. And really, if that breaks, you need another one. And every single piece of kit needs a backup. Basically.
I almost do completely the opposite. As in, if I'm going up the mountain, I work out what is the absolute minimum I can take, because that's the difference. If I've got a heavy pack on whether I'm going to get a shot or not.
I think the way that I prepare for trips is I love to just binge watch content about a destination or, you know, a particular topic or event. I'll just go through as many avenues as possible, like YouTube content, Instagram stories. You can just kind of like build up a mental mood board, I guess. That's kind of my way of inspiring myself.
Can you guys recommend some filming techniques to our audience, please?
Taking cameras into other environments where I like to fix a camera to something static and let the activity move around it. It's like using a car suction mount on the metro in Hong Kong. That was pretty cool. So you can just put the camera and let the train pan across the whole city. Often
you get a richer shot by shooting towards the sun rather than having it behind you. And then for action, so if someone's doing a jump on a mountain bike, try and get to a kind of side-on view. Get into a position where you'll show the full action of something.
One of the things I learned over the kind of 20 years I've been in cameras is that when I started, I kind of used to work on things where people wanted it safe. They didn't want risk, but actually what I've learned is to take more risks and to be brave. I mean, even if your style is put it on a tripod and don't move the camera, commit to that. Don't halfway through think, oh, I'm just going to do this shot handheld. Like, commit to one or the other and make it a style.
So we've had some tips from our experts. Now I want to delve a little bit deeper. Rob, you've just been in the Bahamas. Let's take a look at some of your footage.
I'm on a boat in Bimini, moving around in the Bahamas. It's pretty tricky to get around on. You grab hold of things like this, walk along. It's kind of useful to have a smaller camera than the big. Woo, nearly went.
Yeah, that was just travelling back from a day's filming with the sharks, and I was just playing around with the Z90 because it's small. I could move around the boat, I could hang off the back of the boat and that kind of thing.
What other Sony cameras have you used?
Nearly all of them at the moment, yeah. The neat thing with the Sonys at the moment is that they have almost the same picture down the whole range. It's kind of the same codec, slightly different things about it, but basically the same codec and the same picture from the best cameras to the smallest cameras. It works for me because I go on a shoot and I use a lot of different cameras for different things and all the pictures basically match. One of the neat things about the Z90, which is a step on from previous generations of cameras this small, is that it has ND filters. Anyone who's into filmmaking, it's basically essential, and the cameras this size never used to have them.
Right, should we take a look at how you used it in this?
The trouble you have with video that's different to stills is you don't really want to touch the shutter speed. You want to keep the shutter speed at a 50th unless you want a very shuttery kind of stroby look. You can't up the shutter speed to bring the light down in the way you would on a stills camera. Here what we have, we're at f11, we're at a 50th of a second, we're on the lowest ISO setting and it's still overexposed. So what you're going to do about that, you're going to put ND in. So if I put one level of ND in now, you'll see that this has gone from a shot that was overexposed to a shot that's correctly exposed.
Johno, you recently used the Z90 in the Alps. Let's look at some of the footage you got from that.
I was really interested to see how it handled with the cache record super slow-mo. So it shoots 1,000 frames, it shoots 500 and also 200 frames. I was also shooting it with, it's got continuous 100 frames a second. So that was good for using on a gimbal because you can't really do that with a cache record. Yeah. So I just put it on a gimbal and tried doing some follow cam.
With the beautiful slow-mo details, how do you use the camera and your kind of surroundings to get the best shot possible?
The thing about shooting a high frame rate is that you're able to see things that your naked eye can't really see. So shooting 1,000 frames a second, what I was wanting to do was get in really quite tight and just see the rider coming. And I was shooting against the sun so that everything, there was more definition to the snow as it pinged off the snowboard. I just wanted to show how the snowboard kind of rippled as it went around the corner and show all of the bits of snow just kind of popping away from it. I was also interested to see how well it handled with the autofocus because the rider he was going in and out away from me, and I found that it handled it really well, yeah, with the autofocus. Really because it's got a fairly big sensor. I think it's about, it's a 1-inch sensor. It does give you a pretty decent depth of field, short depth of field, so it was tracking back and forth with him quite well.
What are your guys' thoughts, Rob?
Yeah, I had to play with it as well. It's interesting autofocus because for kind of professional camera people and DOPs and things like that. Yeah, like nobody ever spoke about autofocus. But recently, there's been a lot of kind of talk between sort of camera people about autofocus, and it's often to do with gimbals because you're expected to use gimbals these days, and often you on your own, you've got no assistant, you've got no follow focus, and so people have actually started talking about it in professional circles recently. Wow. So I had a quick play with it, and with my friend's kids. If you watch the top right, which is the screen, I just put the face tracking on just to sort of play with it, and so that's the LCD screen in the top right. I was really impressed. It completely nailed it. I also put the bush in the right-hand corner because that would, in the olden days, it would have, that totally would have taken the autofocus. And then I put, I'd got both of them to do it at the same time. Immediately nails both their faces and tracks them all the way in.
That is incredible.
Like, so, I don't know. I thought it was pretty cool, actually.
That's amazing.
I've never really used it before. Yeah. So I've never dared press the AF button before. And,
I wonder how many viewers will be watching thinking, no.
Yeah.
Joe, what are your thoughts?
I love autofocus for just nailing a focus quick, but then I also love to have that creative opportunity to just hold it and go completely manual. So if I know something's going in front, it's not going to do its own thing and get in the way. And to me, it's a bit of a make or break between which model I'll get, is if there's the quick ability to just flip it on or flip it off, or just to hold autofocus. So the flexibility between manual and auto is what's really important for me.
What inspired you to create your now very successful YouTube channel?
I was watching so many other content creators for years and years, and it just became a natural progression from watching so much that I wanted to get involved, and I wanted to make things as well. I was being inspired to make things, and it's now grown to a place where creating the content has actually been self-sustainable in providing work and creating work. It's sort of run into its own thing.
I've noted that you quite like Japan.
Yeah, just a
little bit. You were recently there about 3 days ago with the Z90 filming.
Yeah.
Should we take a look at some of the footage? What were you shooting there in Japan?
So that was just playing around a little bit with the Z90. It's my first time using that style of camera, and I was just trying to get some static shots of just things that happen around me, trying to fit it into my usual shooting style.
We've talked about autofocus. Now let's talk about another feature of the Z90, which is instant HDR. You guys have filmed some footage. Rob, let's start with you.
Do you want to have a look at it?
Yeah, I'd love to.
Okay, so you may be wondering what the hell this shot is because it's not very beautiful, but I've set it up deliberately badly in order to show what HDR is, high dynamic range. Essentially what you're talking about is where cameras have the black level here and the highlights level here, and HDR essentially moves those goalposts so they're getting more information in the dark and more information in the highlights. So the point is that this is a terribly designed shot light-wise, but the camera is basically helping you out here.
You're obviously quite impressed with that.
I was quite
capabilities.
surprised actually, because it was a really bright day, so I couldn't really see the LCD screen that well. So I was kind of like, yeah, I think there's a little bit of detail in the shadows here. And then when I watched it on my laptop, you could just see everything. You've got to imagine if people are using this in a kind of documentary or factual way, and you kind of run into somewhere and it's just horrendous lighting and you're shooting into the sun, and like if the camera can get pictures like that out of that kind of lighting scenario, then anyone can do it.
Yeah,
Don't need me.
And Joe, you also filmed some footage. Should we take a look at that?
Yeah, sure. So this is in an area called Kitchy Georgie, and I was purposely placing myself and the camera in dark environments, shooting towards brighter areas. And again, I was kind of surprised to see afterwards just how well it's pulled out the details. And another thing actually just noticing with this is how well the stabilization has proved for me. I generally don't use or like tripods, so I do pretty much everything handheld. I'm not really paying attention to my steps all that much. If I was, I could probably get it smoother. It's proved quite well.
So instant HDR is almost a must for on-the-go shooting.
It's probably going to be something that I will get involved with quite a lot. It's been on my mind for a while, and now that I've got equipment and monitors that can actually play back HDR, that's definitely a huge focus for me for the next year.
What are some of your favourite features on the Z90?
It has the top handle, which has proper audio inputs and proper audio controls. What I'm looking for a lot of the time with factual filming is ergonomics and kind of ease of use for the things that I need, and basically audio inputs, just critical, basically.
I really like how lightweight it is. For me, climbing up mountains, trying to get shots of other people looking tired means I have to get up there first and get my camera out. So it being really small was brilliant. I like that when you flip open the LCD that it's on and it's going and you can be rolling in seconds. For me, those are really great features. Shooting 4K, having that option to shoot different frame rates makes it quite complete.
It's a small form factor with a really good picture. That's where it's stepped up from previous generations, I think. So, and so for times when you need a small camera, it's great.
So guys, what's next for all of you? Johno.
I head off in a couple of days to Andorra. I'm rejoining the Freeride World Tour, which
back in the snow.
Yeah, back in the snow.
What about you, Joe?
Yeah, I'm going to be going to Paris, catching some European city vibes, and also shooting a bit of the marathon on photography side of things.
Nice. And you, Rob?
I'm doing whale sharks in Mexico.
Well, very good luck with all of that. And if you have one final tip for our viewers, what do you think it would be?
Whatever it is that you're making, whatever your job, or if you're doing it for fun, whatever it is, bring your personality into it. Make what you're making an extension of your personality and your skills, and then you enjoy it and it comes across.
Brilliant, lovely. Johno?
I would say for someone starting out, it's not about the camera you're using. You can start off by using just a camera phone and learn how to compose a shot and to what light looks good and what works before you need to go buying expensive cameras.
I'd add in that paying attention to your ears and what's happening around you with the audio is incredibly valuable. It's so often forgotten that the sound plays a huge part in video, and just being aware of the ambience, I think, is huge in video.
Thank you guys so much. It's been a really interesting experience listening to you all. So the 3 key things that we can take away from today's show are that it's a thumbs up for autofocus, HDR is great, and finally, stay away from sharks and avalanches. Thanks for watching. Don't miss our next show and subscribe to the YouTube channel now.